Fooled by Randomness, by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. Introduction. Imagine two houses, side by side, in a wealthy suburb. In one, lives a man named Nero Tulip. He's intelligent, thoughtful, and a trader on Wall Street. He makes a very good living, enough for a comfortable life, a reliable car, and a sense of security. He's successful by almost any measure. But in the much larger house next door lives John. John is also a trader. He's not as well educated as Nero, not as thoughtful, but he is fantastically, unbelievably rich. He has two top-of-the-line German cars, a collectible Ferrari, and a house that seems to get bigger with every passing month. John's wife wears enormous diamonds and casually talks about exotic vacations to places she can't find on a map. Every morning, Nero sees this, and a quiet poison begins to seep into his life. He knows he's smart. He knows he works hard. But he feels like a failure. The constant, looming presence of John's outrageous success makes his own feel small and insignificant. He starts to question everything: his methods, his choices, his own worth. Then one morning, everything changes. Nero steps outside and sees John in his front yard, not in a business suit, but looking humbled, his usual swagger completely gone. He's been fired. And not just fired, he's lost almost everything. The massive fortune, the cars, the house, all built on a hidden risk he never saw coming. It was all a mirage. This story, about two neighbors, is the perfect entry point into one of the most important books of the 21st century, Fooled by Randomness, by the brilliant and provocative thinker, Nassim Nicholas Taleb. First published in the early 2000s, this book became a quiet phenomenon, selling over 500,000 copies and being translated into nearly 30 languages. It wasn't just a book, it was a warning. Taleb, a former quantitative trader and a scholar of uncertainty, saw something that almost everyone else was missing. He saw that we live in a world where we constantly mistake luck for skill. We praise the rich and successful as geniuses, and we dismiss the less fortunate as failures, without ever stopping to consider the enormous, hidden role that chance plays in all of our lives. Today, I'm going to share with you the profound lessons from this book. And here is my promise to you: by the end of our time together, you will gain a kind of superpower. You'll be able to look at the world, at success and failure, at the news, and even at your own life, with a new clarity. You will learn to see the invisible engine of randomness at work, and more importantly, you will learn how to protect yourself from its most vicious tricks. This isn't just about finance or markets, it's about understanding the very fabric of reality, and how to live wisely within it. Book summary. So, let's start with that fundamental question that haunted Nero. Why did John, the seemingly more successful man, crash and burn so spectacularly, while Nero, the more cautious one, survived and ultimately thrived? The answer lies in understanding the difference between two kinds of professions. On one hand, you have a dentist. The path to becoming a dentist is long and difficult. It requires years of study and practice. But once you become one, your success is largely tied to your skill. A good dentist who is careful and knowledgeable will consistently do well. His income is predictable. He won't become a billionaire overnight, but he also won't go broke overnight. Randomness plays a very small role in his day-to-day success. On the other hand, you have a profession like trading, or being an entrepreneur, or even a movie star. These fields are drenched in randomness. You can be brilliant and fail. You can be, forgive me, an idiot and succeed beyond your wildest dreams, simply by being in the right place at the right time. John was like a man who built his entire career on a bet that looked safe, but wasn't. For 7 straight years, everything he did worked. He made money consistently, year after year. The market always seemed to reward his strategy. His confidence grew, his ego swelled, and everyone around him hailed him as a genius. He was a master of the universe. He started to believe his own hype. He thought he had discovered a secret formula for the market. Nero, his neighbor, had a different approach. He knew the world was unpredictable. He was obsessed with avoiding what he called the rare event, the one unexpected catastrophe that can wipe out a lifetime of gains in an instant. His goal wasn't to maximize his profits every year. His goal was to survive. He said, "I am shooting for longevity." He took small, manageable losses all the time, but he made sure he was never in a position where one bad day could take him out of the game entirely. While John was collecting massive bonuses, Nero was quietly accumulating a stable nest egg, investing it only in the safest possible vehicles, like U.S. Treasury bonds. He completely missed the great stock market boom, but he also didn't have to worry about a crash. His wealth was not dependent on the whims of the market. Then, in the summer of 1998, the rare event arrived. A financial crisis that started in Russia sent shockwaves across the globe. The very type of investments that had made John a hero suddenly collapsed. The strategies that had worked for 7 years straight stopped working overnight. Because he was so confident, so leveraged, and so unprepared for the unexpected, he lost everything. His entire career was an illusion, created by a lucky streak in a specific market cycle. He was, in Taleb's words, a lucky fool. This is the central idea of the book. A person can benefit from a huge amount of luck, but in their mind, they will attribute their success to their own skill. And the rest of the world will believe them. We see the external signs of wealth, the big house, the fancy car, but we don't see the hidden process that generated it. We don't see the risks they took. To really grasp this, Taleb asks us to consider a thought experiment that is both chilling and brilliant. He calls it Russian roulette. Imagine a bored tycoon comes to you with an offer. He places a revolver on the table with 6 chambers. Inside one of those chambers is a single bullet. He offers you $10 million to put the gun to your head and pull the trigger. What do? Of course, you say no. The risk is absurd. But let's follow the logic. There are 6 possible outcomes, or what Taleb calls alternative histories. 5 of those histories result in you walking away with $10 million. You'd be celebrated. Journalists would write articles about your courage and brilliance. Your friends and family would look at you with admiration. You would be a hero. In the 6th alternative history, you're dead. The problem is, in the real world, we only ever see one history play out. We see the person who pulled the trigger and won. We see the $10 million, the success, the glory. We don't see the other 5 possible worlds, including the one where the story ends in tragedy. The winner himself, high on his success, might even start to believe he was smart to take the bet. He might write a book called How I Made $10 Million with One Bold Move. He becomes a role model. But was his decision a good one? Absolutely not. It was a catastrophically bad decision, even if he happened to survive. The quality of a decision cannot be judged by its outcome. It can only be judged based on the costs of the alternatives. This is the bizarre accounting method Taleb talks about. $10 million earned through diligent, skillful work, like our dentist, is not the same as $10 million earned by playing Russian roulette. The dollar amount is the same, but the dependence on randomness is worlds apart. One is stable and repeatable, the other is fragile and dependent on a single lucky draw. Reality, Taleb warns, is far more vicious than a simple game of Russian roulette. For one, the revolver of real life might have thousands of chambers, not just 6. You could pull the trigger dozens of times and survive, leading you into a false sense of security. You forget the bullet even exists. And second, Unlike a game where you can see the gun and count the chambers, in life, you don't even see the barrel. The risks are hidden. You might be playing Russian roulette without even knowing it. John, our failed trader, was doing exactly that. His strategy was like pulling the trigger on a revolver with 1,000 chambers. For 7 years, he kept winning. He got richer and richer, more and more confident. He, and everyone else, mistook his luck for skill. But the bullet was always there, waiting. And in the summer of 1998, it found him. This failure to see the hidden risks, to consider the alternative histories that could have happened, leads to one of the most powerful and distorting biases in our perception of the world. It's called the survivorship bias. Imagine an infinite number of monkeys, sitting at an infinite number of typewriters. If they bang away on the keys for an infinite amount of time, one of them will almost certainly produce a perfect copy of Homer's Iliad. Now, imagine that monkey shows up at your door, holding his manuscript. He has an impeccable track record. He wrote the Iliad. Would you bet your life savings that he could write the Odyssey next? Of course not. You know that his success was a fluke, a product of pure, dumb luck on a cosmic scale. But here's the problem. In real life, we don't see all the other monkeys. We don't see the trillions of failed monkeys who just typed gibberish. They've vanished. All we see is the one survivor, the one who made it. And we get a completely distorted view of the odds. This bias is everywhere, and it's especially potent in the world of business and finance. We are bombarded with stories of success. Best-selling books like The Millionaire Next Door study the habits of wealthy people to find the secrets to their success. They find that many millionaires are frugal, hard-working, and risk-takers. But this analysis is deeply flawed. The authors only looked at the winners. They never looked at the vast cemetery of failed entrepreneurs who were also frugal, hard-working, and risk-takers. Risk-taking is a necessary ingredient for massive success, but it's also a necessary ingredient for massive failure. The book only shows you the monkeys who typed the Iliad. It hides all the ones who didn't. Think about the people in your own life. Perhaps you have a friend or a relative who has become very successful. It's easy to feel a pang of jealousy, like Nero did with John. It's easy to think, why not me? I'm just as smart, I work just as hard. This is what Taleb calls the social treadmill. You get successful, you move to a wealthier neighborhood, and suddenly you feel poor again because you're comparing yourself to the new, even more successful people around you. Mark and Janet, the couple living on Park Avenue, are a perfect example. Mark makes $500,000 a year, putting him in the top 1% of the population. But in his building, surrounded by corporate titans and hedge fund billionaires, he's at the bottom. His wife, Janet, feels humiliated. She's living in a world of survivors, and it distorts her perception of her husband's very real success. She's miscomputing the probabilities because she's using the wrong sample. The survivorship bias doesn't just affect our perception of wealth, it poisons our understanding of history, of expertise, and even of science. We celebrate generals who won wars through reckless gambles, forgetting the thousands of other generals who took similar gambles and were lost to history. We listen to stock market gurus who have a good track record, forgetting that if you have enough people making predictions, some of them are bound to be right for a while just by luck. Taleb tells a wonderful story about a con man's trick. In January, you receive an anonymous letter predicting the stock market will go up for the month. It does. In February, another letter arrives, predicting the market will go down. It does. This continues for 6 months. By July, you're convinced this person is a prophet. The 7th letter asks you to invest a large sum of money in a special fund. You do, and you lose everything. What happened? The con man started with 10,000 names. He sent a market up letter to 5,000 and a market down letter to the other 5,000. Each month, he only mailed again to the group whose prediction came true. By the end of 6 months, he has a small group of people who have seen him be right 6 times in a row. To them, he's a genius. To us, who see the whole process, he's just a fraud exploiting the survivorship bias. This is why Taleb is so skeptical of experts, especially in fields dominated by randomness. He tells a story about a debate with the famous journalist George Will. A professor named Robert Shiller, who would later win a Nobel Prize, had been warning for years that the stock market was overpriced. George Will pointed out that if anyone had listened to Shiller, they would have missed out on huge gains, as the market had continued to climb. This argument sounds smart, but it's senseless. It's like telling someone they were wrong to warn their friend not to play Russian roulette, because the friend pulled the trigger and survived. The fact that an irrational market can become even more irrational doesn't mean it's a good bet. Shiller was right about the process, even if he was wrong about the timing in that single, visible history. But the media, and our own minds, are drawn to the simple, visible outcome. We love a good story, and he was right and made a fortune is a much better story than he made a thoughtful, probabilistic decision that happened not to work out this time. This brings us to a deeper, more personal level of the problem. It's not just that the world is random and we're bad at seeing it. It's that our own minds are wired to be fooled. Think about this. You're planning a vacation. You're undecided between a rainy, romantic week in Paris and a sunny, relaxing week in the Bahamas. You feel there's a 50-50 chance of going to either one. Now, according to the laws of probability, the rational way to visualize your future is as a linear combination of the two states. 50% of you is walking in Paris with an umbrella, and 50% is lying on a beach with a daiquiri. Can you actually picture that? Of course not. It's absurd. Our brain can only hold one concrete image at a time. We see either Paris or the Bahamas. We can't see the probability in between. This is a profound insight. We are, in Taleb's words, probability blind. We live in a world of maybes, but our brains think in terms of yes and no. This is especially true when emotions are involved. Taleb shares the intensely personal story of Nero Tulep's hidden secret. At age 35, Nero was diagnosed with cancer. The first thing he read was the statistic, 72% 5-year survival rate. Mathematically, a 72% chance of living is exactly the same as a 28% chance of dying. But in Nero's mind, they were completely different worlds. When he focused on the 28% chance of death, he saw an image of himself dead. He imagined the details of his funeral. He was paralyzed by fear. But when he focused on the 72% chance of survival, he saw an image of himself cured, healthy, skiing in the Alps. He felt cheerful and optimistic. At no point did he feel 72% alive. His mind, like ours, couldn't live in the ambiguity of probability. It had to jump to one of the two concrete outcomes. This is the origin of the book's subtitle, The Hidden Role of Chance in Life and in the Markets. The chance is hidden because our brains are not designed to see it. This idea was pioneered by two Israeli psychologists, Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. Their work, which eventually won Kahneman a Nobel Prize in economics, turned our understanding of human rationality on its head. For centuries, economists had assumed that humans were rational actors, making optimal decisions to maximize their well-being. Kahneman and Tversky proved that this is simply not true. They discovered that our minds don't work like a powerful computer, logically calculating the odds for every decision. Instead, we rely on a series of mental shortcuts, or what they called heuristics. These heuristics are quick and dirty rules of thumb that help us make sense of a complex world. They work most of the time, but they come with dangerous side effects, biases. One of the most powerful is the availability heuristic. We judge the probability of an event by how easily we can bring an example to mind. This is why people are more afraid of dying in a terrorist attack than in a car accident. The images of terrorism are vivid, emotional, and constantly shown in the media. Car accidents are common and mundane. Even though car accidents kill vastly more people, the risk of terrorism feels bigger because it's more available to our minds. This explains why the news media is so toxic to our understanding of the world. A journalist's job is to find the most sensational, attention-grabbing story. A plane crash is news, the thousands of planes that land safely are not. A stock market dip is a crisis, the slow, steady growth over years is boring. The media constantly feeds our availability heuristic, making us overestimate rare but dramatic events and underestimate common but less exciting ones. Another powerful bias is anchoring. We don't evaluate things in a vacuum. We evaluate them in relation to a reference point or an anchor. If I ask you to guess the population of a city after telling you it's more than 200,000, your guess will be much lower than if I had told you it's less than 5 million. The initial number anchors your thinking. This explains why wealth doesn't necessarily make us happy. Once we get used to a certain level of income, that becomes our new anchor. A loss from that new level hurts far more than a gain feels good. This is called loss aversion. Psychologists estimate that the pain of a loss is about 2.5 times as powerful as the pleasure of an equivalent gain. Think back to the dentist in Taleb's example, who has an excellent investment strategy that is expected to make him 15% a year. If he checks his portfolio every minute, he will experience the tiny, random fluctuations of the market as a series of painful losses and small pleasures. Because the losses hurt more than the gains, he will end the day emotionally drained and miserable, even if his portfolio is up. But if he only checks his portfolio once a year, he will see the overall positive return and feel great. Same strategy, same outcome, but a completely different emotional experience, all because of the frequency of observation. This is why Taleb says he weans himself from the news. Silence is better than noise. These biases are not just quirks in our thinking. They are a fundamental part of our mental machinery. Evolutionary psychologists argue that our brains are not designed for the modern world. We evolved over hundreds of thousands of years in the African savanna, a world of immediate, physical threats and simple choices. Our brains are optimized for that environment, not for a world of abstract probabilities, complex financial markets, and 24-hour news cycles. We are running on ancient software in a modern world. Our mind, they suggest, works in two different ways, which they call System 1 and System 2. System 1 is our intuitive, emotional, fast-acting brain. It's the part that makes you jump back when you see a snake-like shape on the ground. It's automatic and effortless. System 2 is our rational, analytical, slow-thinking brain. It's the part you use to solve a math problem. It's controlled and requires effort. The problem is, System 1 is almost always in charge. Our emotional reactions come first, and then our rational System 2 comes in afterward to find a logical explanation for why we feel the way we do. We feel, then we think. This is why logical arguments often fail to change our minds or our behavior. You can know, intellectually, that smoking is bad for you, but the emotional craving from System 1 will override that knowledge. This brings us to the deepest philosophical problem in the book, one that has haunted thinkers for centuries, the problem of induction. It's most famously illustrated by the story of the black swan. For thousands of years, people in the old world were certain that all swans were white. Every swan they had ever seen, every swan their ancestors had ever seen, was white. The evidence was overwhelming. The theory all swans are white was confirmed again and again, thousands upon thousands of times. It was, for all intents and purposes, a scientific fact. Then, European explorers landed in Australia, and they saw for the first time a Cygnus atratus, a black swan. With that single observation, a theory that had been confirmed for millennia was instantly proven false. This is the problem of induction in a nutshell. No amount of confirming observations can ever definitively prove a theory is true. But a single counter-observation can definitively prove it is false. As the philosopher Karl Popper argued, a theory is only scientific if it can be falsified, if there's some conceivable observation that could prove it wrong. This has profound implications for how we should view knowledge, especially knowledge derived from past data. Think back to Victor Niederhofer, the trader who based his strategy on the belief that the market would never move by a certain amount in a single day, because it had never happened before. He was the man who had only ever seen white swans. In October 1987, a black swan arrived, and it wiped him out. The most dangerous statement in finance, and in life, is this has never happened before. History does not crawl. It jumps. It is governed by rare, unpredictable, high-impact events, black swans. And the terrible irony is that the more stable things seem, the more white swans you observe, the more vulnerable you are to the one black swan that you're not expecting. Long periods of calm and stability lull us into a false sense of security, causing us to take on more and more hidden risk. Then, the inevitable surprise happens. So, we find ourselves in a difficult position. We live in a world governed by unpredictable, rare events. Our minds are not built to understand probability. We are wired with emotional biases that lead us to make irrational decisions. We are constantly fooled by randomness. What, then, can we do? How are we supposed to live? This is where Taleb moves from diagnosis to prescription, and his advice is not about finding a better way to predict the future. It's about accepting our limitations and finding a dignified way to live with them. He offers a modern form of an ancient philosophy, Stoicism. When most people hear the word Stoic, they think of someone who is emotionless, who endures pain with a stiff upper lip. But that's not what ancient Stoicism was about. For the Stoics, the goal was not to eliminate emotions, but to prevent them from controlling our behavior. The core idea is to distinguish between what is in our control and what is not. We have no control over the events of the world. We can't control the market, we can't control other people, we can't control whether we get sick. We can't control luck. But there is one thing, and one thing only, that we have absolute control over: our own behavior, our own virtue, our own dignity. This is the ultimate solution to being fooled by randomness. No matter how sophisticated our calculations, no matter how much we try to dominate the odds, randomness will always have the last word. We are left only with how we act. A hero, in the classical sense, is not judged by whether they win or lose. They are judged by their heroic behavior. Taleb tells the story of the Roman hero Mark Antony after his final, crushing defeat. The god Bacchus, his protector, has abandoned him. He has lost everything. The poet C.P. Cavafy writes a poem advising Antony on how to face this moment. He does not tell him to be emotionless. He says, "Listen while shaken by emotion, but not with the coward's imploration and complaints." He tells him not to mourn his luck, not to enter into denial. Just to accept his fate with dignity. This is the Stoic ideal. It's not about being a tough guy. It's about recognizing that the only victory that truly matters is the victory over oneself. It's about executing a protocol of behavior that does not depend on the immediate circumstances. It is grace under pressure. So how do we apply this in our own lives? Taleb offers a few practical, Odyssean tricks, ways to tie ourselves to the mast to protect us from the siren song of our own emotions and the noise of the world. The first, and most important, is what he calls wax in my ears. Just as Odysseus filled his sailors' ears with wax to protect them from the siren's fatal song, we must protect ourselves from the constant, toxic stream of information from the news media. We've already seen how the news distorts our perception of risk. It triggers our emotional, System 1 brain and makes us overreact to every little fluctuation, mistaking noise for signal. Taleb says he has weaned himself from the news almost completely. He has the financial news channel on in his office all day, but with the volume turned completely off. Without the sound, he says, the pundits with their moving lips and serious expressions look ridiculous. They lose their intimidating effect. His rule is simple: if an event is important enough, it will find its way to him. He doesn't need to be bombarded with the noise of the moment. The second trick is to create a clear line between what we will and will not expose to randomness. Taleb's method is what he calls a barbell strategy. On one end of the barbell, he is extremely conservative. Like Nero, he keeps the vast majority of his assets in the safest possible investments, completely protected from the black swan. He will never be wiped out by a rare event. But on the other end of the barbell, he takes a small number of aggressive, speculative bets. He invests a tiny portion of his capital in things that could benefit from a rare event, things that have a high probability of losing a small amount of money, but a tiny probability of making a spectacular amount. He is not trying to predict the black swan, he is just positioning himself to benefit from it if it happens. He is a crisis hunter. This is his answer to the problem of induction. He uses his skepticism not to be paralyzed, but to act. He says, I will use statistics and inductive methods to make aggressive bets, but I will not use them to manage my risks. He knows he can be wrong, so he makes sure that the cost of being wrong is always small and controlled, while the potential reward of being right is enormous and open-ended. This is the exact opposite of what John, the failed trader, did. John's strategy made him a small amount of money most of the time, but exposed him to a rare, catastrophic loss. Finally, the most important lesson is a change in mindset. It's about embracing dignity and personal aesthetics. It's about knowing that you can't control what life throws at you, but you can always control how you react. Don't complain. Don't play the victim. Don't blame others for your fate. Don't show self-pity. As Taleb says, the only article Lady Fortuna has no control over is your behavior. This isn't just about big, life-altering events. It's about the small things. Being courteous when you lose money. Not getting angry at a rude driver. Maintaining your personal standards, no matter the reward or the pressure. This is the final profound message of Fooled by Randomness. It is a call to intellectual humility, to recognize the limits of our own knowledge and the vastness of what we don't know. It's a call to courage, to face a random world not with arrogant certainty, but with a resilient and dignified skepticism. It's a reminder that true success isn't about accumulating the most wins, but about surviving with grace, and knowing that how you play the game is the only thing that truly matters. Commentary. As we come to the end of our journey through Fooled by Randomness, I want to take a moment to reflect on why this book is so powerful, and why its message feels more urgent today than ever before. What Nassim Nicholas Taleb achieved is something truly rare. He took a subject that is often abstract and academic, probability, uncertainty, epistemology, and he made it intensely personal, practical, and human. This isn't a book of equations, it's a book of wisdom, passed down from a man who has spent his life in the trenches, betting against the arrogance of those who think they can predict the future. The most powerful lesson, for me, is the call for intellectual humility. We live in an age of experts, gurus, and pundits, all selling us the illusion of certainty. They offer 7 steps to success, a guaranteed investment strategy, a perfect prediction of the future. Taleb reminds us that this is a dangerous fantasy. The world is far more random, far more unpredictable than our human minds want to believe. Recognizing this, truly accepting it, is the first step toward wisdom. It's liberating. It frees you from the pressure of having to know everything, and allows you to focus on what truly matters, building a life that is robust to the unexpected. This book is a powerful antidote to the envy and comparison that social media and our modern culture breed. When you see someone achieve spectacular success, your first instinct will no longer be jealousy. It will be curiosity. You will ask, how much of this was skill, and how much was luck? Did they get there through a repeatable, stable process, or by unknowingly playing Russian roulette? This simple shift in perspective can save you from a lifetime of feeling inadequate, and help you focus on your own path, on building something that is real and durable. So, how can you start applying these ideas to your own life, right now? First, practice the art of wax in your ears. For just 1 week, try a media fast. Stop watching the news. Stop checking the minute-by-minute fluctuations of the stock market or your crypto portfolio. Stop scrolling through endless headlines. See how it feels to disconnect from the noise. You might find that you lose nothing of value, and gain a profound sense of clarity and peace. Second, start thinking in terms of alternative histories. The next time you make a decision, don't just think about the outcome you want. Think about the range of possible outcomes. Ask yourself, what's the worst-case scenario here? What is the rare event I'm not seeing? How can I protect myself from it? This simple mental exercise will make you a far more robust and resilient decision-maker. And finally, embrace the stoic mindset. The next time you face a setback, a disappointment, or a moment of bad luck, focus on the one thing you can control: your reaction. Don't complain, don't blame, don't despair. See it as an opportunity to practice grace under pressure. See it as a test of your character. This is not easy, but it is the path to true inner freedom. It's the knowledge that, no matter what fortune throws at you, it can never take away your dignity. That was a summary of Fooled by Randomness by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. We've walked through the key ideas today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary can only ever be a map. The real treasure is found when you make the journey yourself. The true power of this book is in the quiet moments of reading, when one of Taleb's stories or a particular phrase connects with your own experience in a way you didn't expect. This summary is your guide to decide if this journey is worth your time. If anything we've discussed today has sparked your curiosity, I urge you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning, it's an experience that can fundamentally change how you see the world, and your place within it. The link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please show your support by liking this episode and subscribing to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep learning and growing together.